Apprehend God in all things, for God is in all things. Every single creature is filled with God and is a book about God. Amen. Well, happy Father's Day. Put away your phones and look at me. Okay, so happy Father's Day to all you fathers and soon-to-be fathers and those who function like fathers and everybody here who has influence over somebody else. Happy Father's Day. So being a father, I don't know if any of or all of you know this, but Cindy and I, my wife, we have 3 children. Dylan, Kaylee, Miles. And of all the things in the world I love being their father. I mean, I love it. It's one of my greatest gifts and one of my biggest pains. So it's one of those things that has both of that, right? Being a father has taught me so much about myself. It's taught me a lot about my life, a lot about life in general, about people. And in particular, it's taught me one thing really in particular, and that is how to live with and learn how to love differences. Because of those 3 children, they're all different. Each one is different. Now, if you have multiple children, do not leave me hanging here, because you know that's true, right? And it's not like Cindy and I meant for that to happen. Right? And it's not like any of our kids meant for that to happen. They just are different. They function differently. And that, you see, is a good thing. It's a beautiful thing. And it's a hard thing all at the same time. Sometimes it seems like, or I think, in my own mind at times, that it would be easier if everybody was the same. But is that true, really? Because here we are, right here now, in this place, and though we all kind of look put together, and we're looking good, and we showered, and we got all that going on, we're different, aren't we? Nobody really knows exactly who thinks what, or what everybody here believes, or how you hear anything that I'm saying right now. See, differences are part of the joy and the pain of what it is to be human. It's one of those mysterious gifts that we've been given. And I think, as I said in our Sunday school class this morning, I think our families are like this perfect little petri dish to kind of practice out differences. And how do we live and love in those differences? That's what Paul was dealing with today in the reading from Galatians. Paul was dealing with, how do I take all these people from these disparate places of life and help them to live together as a community of love? How does that happen? Did you hear it? He said, I know that you're coming from from different genders, from different economic backgrounds, from different religious backgrounds, and from different ethnic backgrounds. And that oftentimes if we focus too much on those things, it separates us. And makes us feel like me against you, you against me. Male against female, Jew against Greek, slave against free. And he's trying to flip that all around. In essence, this is what he says. He says, despite our very real differences, it's like he's asking a question. Despite our very real differences, male, female, slave, free, Jew, Gentile, despite our gender, our economic, our religious, and our ethnic differences, he says, can we live together and love each other? Can we do that? And then he answers his own question. Did you hear his answer? He says, yes, we can do that. We can live together. We can love each other in our differences when we remember that prior to any difference that we see in each other, prior to any difference that we might think, there is a deeper truth. And you know what that deeper truth is? We're all children of God. All of us. No exclusions. Before our gender differences, before our economic differences, before all those things that we tend to try to identify ourselves with, there's something prior to that, deep within inside of each and every one of us. And that is, you are the image of God, loved by God, a child of God. And nothing can take that away from you, or me, or anybody else. So if I can see you that way, and you can see me that way, we can connect, despite our differences. And maybe, just maybe, we can even live in a community of love, he says. Now, I don't know about you, but I needed this lesson this week. Because this has been a horrific week, if you ask me. A week filled with violence and pain and suffering. And it's all at its root cause, for me, all of its root cause is because we're different. And it seems like it's become acceptable for some people to say that violence is the way to deal with differences. And the most extreme form of this we see in ISIS. And ISIS essentially is saying, if you're not like us, we will kill you, period. And that happens, and the news shows it over and over and over again, and God Almighty, what a painful week. It's so painful to me that I thought, is this all there is? Really? Is this the only way we can learn how to deal with something that we don't agree with, or we don't like, or we can't understand? This is it? So I needed this lesson to remind me, no, it's not it. There are other ways. There are other ways. And from a spiritual perspective, the root way is to see in one another the spark of God that each of us carries. And to remember that that's given to you prior to anything else. So as I thought about this and prayed about this and agonized a bit over this, I just kept being led to this book again, Tattoos on the Heart. If you were here, I don't know, a year ago, I think I used this like every week. And the reason I use this book all the time is because it's a book written by a guy named Gregory Boyle, and he's a Roman Catholic Jesuit, a Roman Catholic priest, who serves in South Central Los Angeles, and he works with gang members. And the whole problem with gang members is this, we're going to destroy you because you're not in our gang. It's the destructive side of seeing differences and wanting to get rid of those differences. Instead of seeing the differences and maybe opening up enough that we can love people in our differences. So he does that. He does it better than anybody I've ever read about or heard about. And this book is just chock filled with stories of people who are bridging the differences and living in a place that's more unified as opposed to separate. So one such story is a guy about a kid named Anthony. Anthony is 19 years old, and his parents were drug addicts, so he never really was raised by anybody. And by the time he was 19, he was on his own. They were gone. So Anthony did what most people do. He tried to find a family. He tried to find a place where he fit. He tried to find somewhere that was going to accept him, and he ended up in a gang. And he got the destructive side of being accepted. But what was he going to do? In time, he realized, I don't want to do this my whole life, and he tried to get out. And he eventually made his way to Greg Boyle's place. And he said, basically what I'm telling you, I'm trying to get out of this. Can you help me? And Greg said to him, well, what is it you want to do with your life? What are you interested in? And despite his background, this kid was extremely positive and upbeat. And he said, I want to be a mechanic. And Greg thought, well, yeah, he must have some experience with fixing things. So he goes, do you have experience with fixing things? And he goes, no. None at all. But I want to be a mechanic because I think that would be really cool. So Greg was set with the task of finding somewhere where he could work, though he had absolutely no experience and maybe no aptitude for it. But he remembered this one guy. The guy was a Japanese American, and he was kind of a loner. And he didn't really fit in with the neighborhood. He didn't fit in with all the stuff. He just kind of kept his head down and did his work. And Greg said this guy was not just a man of few words, he was a man of no words. He said nothing to anybody. So he went in and talked to Dennis, and he gave him the pitch about how he should hire this guy. Hire this guy. He's going to be great. Okay, he has no experience. He doesn't know anything there is to know about mechanics, but he's going to be a great employee. And he just gives him the big sales pitch, and he goes on and on and on. And he goes, essentially he's like, you're going to win the Nobel Peace Prize. You're going to, he's just pushing it so hard because he wants the kid to have a chance. After about an hour, the guy's just sitting there with a cigarette the whole time, blowing out smoke. And then he'd let the cigarette sit on his lips, blow out smoke. He's just listening to him and looking at him. Kind of like some of you are looking at me right now. Like, come on, we got brunch. Right? That's it. I know what you're thinking. No. So there he is. He's smoking the cigarette, and he's blowing out smoke, and he's just sitting there. And after about an hour, Greg says, stop. He stops, and there's this that uncomfortable silence for like 2 minutes, where the guy just sits there with a cigarette in his mouth, looking at him. So Greg thinks, well, this isn't going to work, and he gets up to leave, and the guy, Dennis, goes, I'll teach him everything I know. So this kid with no family, with no background in mechanics, starts working with this Latino kid starts working with this Japanese man. And month by month, he would report to Greg just to tell him what he was doing and what was going on. And he'd say, this week I did a lube job, and I changed tires, and I fixed this, and I did that. And 1 week he brought a picture of him with his arm around Dennis, Anthony with his arm around Dennis, with a new shirt that said, you know how mechanics have that shirt, Anthony, on it, with the biggest smile in the world. And then there's Dennis with a cigarette in his mouth. But just as big a smile. Two transformed people. Because they were willing to be open to their differences. Because they recognized, even if they wouldn't use this term, they recognized in each other that they were each children of God. And I tell you, my friends, I hope you can see yourself that way today. I hope you can see the people you love that way today. And I hope you can see the people who you're different with that way today. Because the world needs it. Now more than ever. Happy Father's Day.